Maniac, man.
So today's guest is a very successful investor. He started out buying properties in downtown LA and grew his portfolio to 980 doors before selling it. Thanks for coming on, Jim. Appreciate it.
Sure.
So can you give a little origin story of who you are before real estate?
Well, I born U.S., grew up in Iran, and at the age of 15 came to the U.S. Like my father to get my degree, and then revolution happened, and we ended up staying in the U.S. So went to high school in Santa Cruz and college in Santa Cruz, and then moved to L.A. When my dad sold his business and bought a business in L.A., we moved here to work at my dad's company. And after he sold his company, I got into real estate. Got into garment business with my really good college buddy, and built a brand over 12 years. And we're selling to department stores. And during the last 3 years we had the business, we noticed that the business was slowing down. And because of a lot of Chinese products were coming on the market competing with us. So a good friend of mine that's a CPA turned us on to real estate, saying that it was in the mid-90s here, saying that he has clients that are buying buildings in the mid-Wilshire area, which is west of downtown LA, and that their rate of return is pretty good. And he also wanted to get into it himself. So he said, if we come in, he'll come in. That's how we started buying buildings in mid-Wilshire, the three of us, me, my CPA, and my business partner and good friend from college. And over 7 years, we built that portfolio to 980 units. We brought on a few money investors that syndicated, and we built our portfolio. We managed it, and then we had a guy come down from the Bay Area, bought the entire portfolio, and then I started buying my own properties.
Wow. So you grew up in Iran. That's where you grew up? Well, I never knew that. So you grew up in Iran, but you said you were born in America.
In Maine, Milo, Maine. My mom's American. Yeah.
Oh, so you were born in Maine, and then you moved to Iran because your father was originally from Iran.
Yeah, he had come to the U.S., got a degree here in civil engineering, worked for the state of Washington, state of Maine, and decided to go back to Iran. The economy was booming there, and he started a construction company and worked with the government for highways, dams, and big projects he was doing.
And so you lived there till you were 15?
I lived in Iran till I was 15 and then moved back to the U.S. We would come in the summertime to be with my grandmother. So we were back and forth between Iran and U.S. a lot for our vacations, for everything, because we had family here, but on my mother's side. But yeah, generally.
And then when you came back, did you move to LA? Is that the first place you moved when you first came, or?
No, I first lived in Maine with my grandmother. So my freshman year in high school, we were in the town where I was born. It's Milo, Maine. It's a tiny little town of 2,000. To this day, it's still only 2,000 population.
Yeah.
I went to high school there, but starting sophomore year, we moved to Santa Cruz, and we lived there for 7 years. Finished my high school there, went to college there. UC.
Your dad had a business there?
Yeah, he bought a business. He bought an office supply wholesale business. And so I ended up working there all through high school. We would work there after school and the weekends. And then he sold that. He got an opportunity to buy a much bigger office supply wholesale company called Lightning Sales in LA. And so we ended up combining. Actually, he combined the company. He sold some of the assets off in Santa Cruz, but he combined the companies, and we moved to LA back in '86.
And then have you been self-employed since college?
I've never, yeah, I've only worked in a restaurant is the only time I've ever gotten a paycheck. Somewhere else was when I worked at a Acapulco restaurant for 3 years.
And was that in college?
That was when I was, yeah, the last year of high school and the first 3 years of college. I had to drop out of college. I couldn't finish my college because we moved to LA and I had to work in my dad's company, so didn't have time to finish it, unfortunately.
Gotcha. And so then you started a garment business, right? You said,
Yes.
and you said you did that for 12 years.
12 years, yes.
12 years, okay. And so now you get into real estate business. You're in the real estate business, and for 7 years, you started out, and it took, and within a 7-year period, you guys grew to almost 1,000 units, 980 units, right?
Yes, 983 units to be exact.
Be exact.
Yeah.
Oh, and it was you and two partners. Now,
Yes.
were all of you guys sharing the same? Like, how did you guys break out who did what? How did that work?
Well, my garment, my partner Mark, which is my friend from from college. He ran the garment end of it because the first 3 years we were in we ran the garment business. So he did the garment business. I only did the apartment building, and then our 50%, the CPA was 50% owner because he had more money and he put up half of it. Me and my partner were 25 each. And he did, he brought investors, he found the deals, he dealt with the banks for the first few buildings. And then, after we got on a roll, then we all found properties, and it was,
So in the beginning, you were like the property manager.
Yes, I managed the properties, and every property we bought right off the bat, we'd upgrade, we'd renovated. We wanted to always looking property on the blocks of water tenants had, and that was our strategy.
Yeah, I mean that's super important because that's like the same way I did it. You cut your teeth early, learning all that stuff, right? It's so important to learn that stuff, right?
Yes.
Because if you had just learned the numbers or just learned something else, you actually learned the most important stuff early on: how to rent, how to deal with tenants. So now you know firsthand how to deal with all that stuff.
Yeah, when you renovate these old buildings, all the buildings we bought were from the 1910, 1920s.
Yep.
Actually, over the years, I've renovated 2 historic buildings. One building I have right now, which I got an award for by the state of California and the city of Long Beach. And I did renovate a building, 1701 Sunset Boulevard, and I got an award from the city of Los Angeles for the best renovation and adaptive reuse of a historic building. That was one of the last buildings we bought. But we found out soon enough that if you have people, everybody loves to live in a beautiful place. Everybody. They take pride, and you can get your choice of the cream of the crop of the people that live in whatever level neighborhoods you buy in. If you have the best looking building in that neighborhood, you'll get the best tenants. You can demand the best rent because people like to live in everybody likes to go to good looking areas, good looking buildings, beautiful units. Everybody likes that.
100%. So, yeah, definitely. So let me shift gears here because we talked about 980 units. So you buy 980 units, you sell them. Today you own properties in Long Beach, California, Albany, New York, and Houston, Texas. Can you give us a breakdown of what you currently own?
I have 30 apartment units in Long Beach, 2 condos, a hotel in Long Beach with 20 rooms and 4 retail spaces, 2 restaurants, a bar, and a coffee shop in one building. And in Texas, I own 76,000 square feet commercial real estate, where we have 99 Cent Store, Fitness 19, restaurants, bars, dentists, office, hair salons, nail salon, laser shows, laser skincare, I mean, and daycare centers. And in New York, I own a 77 unit mobile home park, 28, 33, and 12 unit buildings.
Gotcha. Okay. So normally what I like to do is, have somebody on who can explain something that are going to watch this. You have the experience. A lot of people that are going to watch this don't have any buildings yet, or maybe they have one or two buildings. You have, a master's degree, a PhD in this. You've been doing it for a lot of years. You've been successful. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of smart people make a lot of mistakes. It's not. It's a simple business, but it's a hard business, right? It's not super complex, but it's hard. Like
it's a lot of common sense.
It's common sense. It's very common sense. You don't have to have a master's degree to do it. But people with master's degrees screw it up a lot of times because it's very simple, but you got to have common sense. And so you've done it. You've had over almost 1,000 units, and today you still have a lot of property. So the question I have for you is scaling. What would you recommend to somebody who only has one or two properties? How do they scale it, and what's your recommendation how to scale it to get more units? If they want 500 units, how would you recommend to do that?
All right. Well, I mean. There's two ways I see that I was able to scale. Number one way is when you buy a property and you can do it added value, where you buy something that at a good price and you go in there and you renovate it, you fix it, you up the rents, you hold on to it for 2 years, possibly 3. Then you can refinance that you've added value to the property and cash out your added value. And if you're lucky and the interest rates have gone down, your payments might not go up, or you maybe your purchase price loan wasn't that great of an interest rate because of the condition of the building. Maybe now that you've got it fixed, you might end up with better rates. Either way, you cash out and it's tax-free. The cash out always tax-free. With that cash out, you can buy another building.
Yep.
That's one way to scale up, and it takes time, but it is exponential. So once you have 2 buildings and you have 3, that doesn't mean the very first building won't appreciate in value 5 years, 7 years from then, that you can cash out again. And you've done 7 years of principal reduction. So then that's cashed out again. So that's one way of expanding a portfolio. It takes time, but it is exponential. So the more properties you end up with, the more faster you can cash out and the more you can buy. And that takes. The one thing you don't want to do with this, you don't want to get over leveraged on any of your properties. There's a certain amount of, you need to be a little conservative when you want to cash out from a property, because you do not want to over leverage your property. You want to always make sure that with the market vacancy plus maybe an extra 20% of vacancy calculated on top of that, you're still quite safe with your utilities, mortgage, and expenses. Because, just as fast as you can go up, you can fall if you can't make your mortgage payments because you yeah, that's how I got into business, is buying properties from people who had over leveraged the properties. The second way is if you have a successful formula and the buildings you have, the 2-3 buildings you have is turning profits, and you can put a plan together for investors. You can go to people and you can show them what you've done. And if they're willing to put up the money, the way I do it sometimes, I have 2 buildings that I have my friends as investors because they wanted to come in. But once investors see that you put your own money into a deal, they're a lot more comfortable putting their money into a deal. So right off the bat, that's an easy way to get investors, telling them, hey, 50%, I've always want control of the property. I'm going to put half the money up myself. I want 51% ownership. But then you can syndicate. You can syndicate 25%, 30%, 20%, depending on what you want. You take 25% of the profits.
Yep, that makes sense.
So this way, if an investor can get, 7 to 15% cash on cash, I mean, there's no better investment for them. And the property is their security. It's actually a really good investment for people to put their money in, especially retired people, because their money's always going to be secure.
Yep. Yeah, I think what I've seen too is when people see that you're successful, people come to you. If they start seeing you're making money, they're asking you how you're making money, and then you attract people that way. So I'm sure they see you're making money, they're going to come to you and say, "Hey, how are you doing this?" And then you might be able to pick up an investor that way as well. Both of those ways are perfect, and I've done both of those myself. So those are definitely great ways to scale up. So now that you've had all this experience, you've had the multifamily and you've had the commercial, what do you like the best? What properties do you think perform the best and you're most comfortable buying more of?
Well, the commercial properties that I have are the least headache, but in my opinion, they're the least stable also. So even in today's world, if you look at it, there's going to be a little shakeup in commercial real estate. Restaurants might not be as strong as they used to be. So I know there's going to be an adjustment period. And I've always thought between offices and commercial real estate, retail, there's always a risk.
Yeah.
But residential apartment buildings in B and C locations, in my opinion, are the strongest, the safest market, because if when you buy the building, you do the proper renovation where your biggest problems are usually plumbing. So if you can go in a building right off the bat when you buy it and count on upgrading the plumbing and drain lines, there's a huge portion, and roof leaks. There's a huge portion of over the years, your maintenance that's going to be eliminated. With that said, people always need a place to live, no matter how the economy changes, no matter how businesses change from retail to online shopping to, whatever happens out there, people need a place to live. B and C properties, in my opinion, are strongest in apartment building because even if the economy goes down, people who live in A properties can scale down to a B property. People who live in B properties might scale down to a C property. It's very A properties, beachfront condos, beachfront homes that you bought very high and you have to lease it for high rates. Might be a little more difficult to rent if the economy is down. And usually the cash flow on those are quite a bit less, even in a good economy. So B and C properties, I think, are the strongest, safest place to put your money.
Now, when you buy now, are you still, I know, we'll talk about COVID in a second because that changes things a lot, but before COVID, if you were going to buy more properties, are you buying value-added properties still, or what kind of properties are you buying now at your point in your career now?
Well, before COVID, the market had already gone up quite a bit, so it was very hard to buy value. I never buy turnkey property, buy value add, but I was also at a point where I'm getting ready to retire. And I just don't want to deal with a lot of stuff as far as renovation, dealing with permitting, dealing with a lot of stuff. So I was starting to look at turnkey property, even if it was a 3.5, 4 cap. But I knew that 5 years down the line, rents would go up, and I'd be okay with it. And then also the depreciation I could use on the income that I had coming from other properties. So there were other advantages for me to buy a property other than a cash on cash scenario. Like I said, depreciation was also an advantage for me. Before, when I was started in real estate, that didn't mean anything to me. I just needed cash on cash.
Yep.
I wasn't making the kind of money that I would consider tax savings as an income.
Yeah,
So,
at that time it was all value add. You had to make money. You wanted to do the refinance. You wanted to make the real money.
yeah.
So it didn't make sense. You weren't looking at cap rates at that time.
Yes, but now when you start getting cash flow and you start having some income, and every year you're having good capital gains, or you have good income on your tax returns. Sometimes if you buy a property, even if the property's cash on cash is very low, there might be other advantages of owning it that actually is like making money. Tax,
yeah. Yep, understand. So, what do you think? What do you think the opportunity is now? So, what opportunities do you see with COVID-19? You've been around a while. You've seen other recessions. You've seen the market turn many times in your life. This is something we've never ever seen. Nothing even remotely like this in our lifetime. But what do you think? What do you think is gonna? What opportunities do you see for real estate investors post COVID?
Well, it's very, very hard to know what's going to happen post COVID. I mean, office space is going to be hit hard, I suspect, with all this, working out of the house. But I'm not a big office building fan. And in residential, there might be a lot of people that got into real estate, like what happened in 2008, where everybody was buying homes and flipping them, and everybody, was an expert in doing it. When you talk to them, like they've been doing it. So what I think there's going to be an opportunity is the B properties, possibly C properties, even A, apartment buildings or condos that people overpaid. And with the economy hurting and going into a recession so quick, that some of these building owners and condo owners might find out that people will not pay the price they thought they can get for these units.
Yeah.
And the only thing, that's what I'm suspecting, is that some of those properties that were bought at a 3 cap, at a 2.5 cap, they might end up back on the market under a foreclosure scenario, and we go back to a more, I mean, there was a reason why New York, California did rent control. The rents were getting out of control. They were, rents were going up and up and up because they could. The economy was booming. But now, overnight, everything is dropped. They pulled the rug out from under the economy. So if things are going to take a few years to recover, then those higher rents are not going to be achievable. And those people that bought these buildings based on those higher rents are going to, especially if they were leveraged. Quite a bit.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's what I was thinking. The cap rates being too high, these low cap rates, people buying them, they're going to have the same problems they had back in 08, 09, and then what happens is you see these properties, like right before this happened, you would see a property that was on the market. Back in 08, the same property was on the market for 700 days, didn't sell. Today there's multiple offers on it. And the rent was a little higher, but not a lot higher.
Not a lot,
so,
yeah.
Not a lot higher. In some of these cities, like, some of these cities that we deal with, and the rent was a little bit higher. But I would look back and I would see the same property on the market for 700 days back in 10, 11, 12, and didn't sell. And now I would put it on the market, or somebody else would put it on the market, or I would see it, and it would sell with multiple offers and for way more money. And the cap rates are not where you'd want them. So yeah, people are going to have problems because they don't know how to do their numbers, And these are probably people that aren't really in the business, haven't been in the business, the people that are overpaying for these properties. Because they don't know that people aren't going to pay. Sometimes people aren't going to pay you rent. They don't have a vacancy factor. They have 100%. They feel this property is going to be 100% occupied. They don't have any factor. They don't have a maintenance per door. Their maintenance per door.
Reserve. Yeah.
Yeah, their maintenance per door is they feel like we'll do a little maintenance a year. They don't realize what maintenance is actually going to cost. And the building's 100 years old. You know what I mean? So, what number do you put on a door? Like, do you have a number that you put on these doors? And here in in the Albany area, what would you think? Because I'm always at a couple $100 a door. I mean, it can be expensive. With these properties.
The main thing I look at, the main thing to me when I look at a building is its condition of the plumbing, condition of the roof.
Yep.
Electrical, unless it's old, old fuse boxes and old original wiring from the late 1800s, early 1900s, that's going to be a problem. But most buildings don't have that. But depending on, like I said, the roof and the plumbing and drain lines are my biggest thing. If they're good, I go a little bit less. If they're not good, I count that into my cost of purchase, upgrading some of those, especially drain lines.
Yeah.
Changing faucets, changing traps, those are quick and easy fixes and not that expensive, but if you're constantly sending someone to open up drain lines, and then you have to open the walls to get to that drain line and replace it or dig under the building to get to the main drain line, that's where the money can easily add up. And also water heaters and boilers and furnaces. So
that's what I always tell. Investors that are starting out. I say, have a spreadsheet, right? I wish I had done this. Have a spreadsheet and know how old your roof is, how old your furnace is, how old your hot water tank is. So you're constantly looking at it. So when somebody calls you and says your hot water tank went, it's not a surprise. You know how old it is, right? And when you buy the building, or immediately when you buy it, upgrade all those things like you're saying. Have a new hot water tank. Have all that stuff.
Or have a number on it, like you say, have a price tag on replacing the roof, have a price tag on a new boiler because this boiler has been there for 20 years.
Yep.
And have that money available, or understand that within the first few years of you owning the building, that's going to be a money you're going to have to come up with and include that in your calculations.
Yep.
And if,
because when you get that call, like I was buying, back when I first started, I was buying a building a week for like a year and a half. So I wasn't doing that. I wish I had, because then I get the calls that, I got to buy 4 hot water tanks this month, and I didn't know, So because I hadn't thought about it, because I was buying them so fast. So if you go into it and you have it right in your head, you always know that property on Bridge Street is going to need a hot water tank. And then when you get the call, and you're prepared for it. That's a big difference. And trust me, it sounds very simple, but nobody ever does it. And then I know that most people don't do it. And then they say, we'll deal with it later. And then it happens. And the more properties you have, the more costly that become. Yes. But that's definitely a big nugget right there. Yeah. So the last thing I had was, we talked about COVID opportunities. And let me just see. I had a note here. Talk about post-COVID. See. Okay, this was another COVID thing that I had written down. During COVID, so what have you done? So COVID happens, it happens real fast. New York's getting shut down. California's getting shut down. We're all scrambling. What were the first things you did to protect your properties? Your staff? What kind of things did you do?
Well, first of all, my staff, if they have to go in a unit to make a repair, once everything started coming to light on TV and they started on the news where they started talking about PPEs and We started learning about the infection, how it travels, and that people have to keep their distance. Once all that came to light, my repair crew in Long Beach, they won't go in a building unless the person that lives in the building is not there. They would have to leave the unit, and then we'll go and make the repairs with proper gear, mask and gloves. So we don't breathe on their stuff. That's why we put on masks.
Yes.
And we make our repairs. And, I have a little disinfectant strategy where they spray down the places they touch with disinfectant, and then they leave. So that's one thing we've done. And in the hotel, there's a guideline. CDC has a guideline, and we follow that strictly. So that's one that we've done. And secondly is regarding rent. We will work with our tenants, but they would have to show us documentation on losing jobs and applied for unemployment. And we just need to make sure that it's not a scenario where they're just taking advantage of no evictions. Even though we can't evict, but if we understand that they still have their job and they're choosing not to pay rent because of that scenario, then we will deal with them differently after the eviction status is over. Eviction hold moratorium's over. So that's the two things we're doing at this point.
Now, what have you found as far as tenants paying? What percentage did you get paid on this month, April?
Quite a bit more. Long Beach, I only out of the 30 units, I only had one guy that legitimately lost his work, and he works in a dentist office. He's a nurse, and he showed us the letter. He showed us his unemployment application and sent us a copy of his bank statements, which is what we required. And every month he doesn't have a job or doesn't get his unemployment check, we will work with him. He just has to show us. And but everybody else is paid. And New York, we're collecting a lot better than we thought. We'll know more by this week, end of this week. We'll know more how much we collected. But it seems to be the majority of people, a big percentage of people are paying rent still.
Yeah, we got a lot more than we originally thought. Thought April was going to be a bloodbath originally, and most people paid. It's like 98% of tenants paying. We're finding, it's high. We have about 50% that aren't paying, but they were the ones that weren't paying before because we inherited them that way. Yeah. So, last question. I always ask this question. What's the number one thing you wish somebody would have told you when you? What is that? The number one thing somebody would have told you before you started investing in property, you didn't know.
The number one thing I wish I would have known or be more aware of is don't sell a property that's making you money. And it's a solid property. There's 3 properties in particular that I regret selling. Not the portfolio. I know we left a lot on the table, but at the time we got top of the market. But there were 3 properties. Even though I got top of the market, I was hesitant selling them, and I shouldn't have sold them. They were great locations. They were money makers, and I didn't particularly have plans with all the equity I was pulling out.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a better place to put it. So I wish I wouldn't have sold them. And to this day, I regret one in particular I sold, which is 1 block from the beach. It was 32 units. I completely renovated. That was one I wish I wouldn't have sold.
So when you drive by, you always think, right? When you drive by, you go, "Oh, I wish I still owned that." Because I do the same thing.
I try to take a different route because it burns me every time I drive by.
Because that happens to me every once in a while. I drive by a building and say, "Oh, I wish I still owned that building." It's not a lot, but there's a few, just a few. Yeah. And so All right, so yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's like the Warren Buffett approach, right? Once you have it, you kind of hold it for the
Yes.
long term, right? And it's the
Yes.
same thing. It's the same approach, and I've heard that over the years as well. You know, once you get it, kind of keep it, and that's the way I'm going to move forward in my life. You know, as I buy more properties, give them to the kids, hopefully, and let them have it. Is hopefully what happens. So.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I like when I buy a building now, my recent buildings, especially the ones in Long Beach that I bought. I do all the plumbing and electrical work up front, put a new roof if it needs it, or make major repairs to it, upgrade it, because I don't plan on selling anything anymore. I fix it the way I know it's going to be good for years to come. And it'll be something I can give my kids, and the cash flow can continue even years after I'm gone for my kids.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Be a security blanket for them, be a security backing them up in case they ever need, to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that makes sense. That makes sense. Same thing I'm trying to do as well. You know, just leave it for them. So, well, I think you've helped a lot. I appreciate it. A lot of good information. You know, like I said, a lot of people that, we're going to send this out to people that we have in our database, people that ask questions every day while asking these questions. So this will help people, and you have so much experience. So I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much. This was fun, actually.